the adoption and the distribution and the propagation, all of those use cases into the mass markets. I think this is actually what keeps me or makes me very excited. Our ability to really build the infrastructure to support it and to partner with the people that are bringing it to market.
Hey everybody, Tanner here with WAGMI Ventures. On today's episode, we have Michael Shaulov, co-founder and CEO at Fireblocks. For anyone who's new, this is the WAGMI Ventures podcast, where we do snapshots with interesting builders, founders, and investors from across Web3. Check out wagmiventures.io to learn more about the syndicate behind the podcast. But for now, let's get into it with Michael at Fireblocks. All right, what's up, everyone? This is the WAGMI Ventures podcast. I'm Tanner, and I'm here today with Michael Shaulov, co-founder and CEO at Fireblocks. Michael, how are you doing today? What's going on?
Doing great. Thanks. Exciting days. So everything is pretty good here.
Awesome. It's great to hear. And I'm super pumped to chat. I know we have a ton of great stuff to talk about. And so, I definitely want to talk a lot about the cool work happening at Fireblocks these days, but would love to first maybe get situated for that conversation by learning a little bit more about you, if that works, because you've been a repeat founder, you've been an early stage investor in a number of successful companies, all kinds of other things, right? And so I'm curious if you could maybe kind of narrate your parallel journeys of your crypto journey, how that interest evolved over time, kind of alongside your professional journey and how they came to intersect with your creation of Fireblocks.
Yeah, for sure. So I think before Fireblocks, I was actually not in the broadly fintech space or even in crypto. And most of my career was situated around cybersecurity. So, many years ago, I started working with cybersecurity as part of my military service. And then back in 2011, started my previous company that was focused on mobile security. So we were kind of the first guys that recognized that people were adopting smartphones, Apple and Android in their work environment. And we built the first solution to secure those phones against mobile attacks, right, against malware and so on. And then in 2015, we got acquired by a company called Checkpoint that they've been they're still one of the biggest cybersecurity companies. They invented the firewall back in the days. And the way that I actually sort of got involved in crypto was that in 2017, we got involved in doing a small part of investigation of a hack that happened in South Korea. So back in 2016, 2017, a group called Lazarus, which is sort of attributed to the North Korean hackers. They hacked into 4 cryptocurrency exchanges in South Korea. They stole $200 million worth of Bitcoin. That's basically 2017 notional value. So, multiply that by 65. So it was a pretty big amount of Bitcoin that was stolen over there. And we did a small part of that investigation. So that kind of triggered my interest in the space. And what I would say we recognized is the fact that you basically have both the opportunity or the promise of blockchain and the crypto rails to become the new standard or some kind of replatformation around how the financial system works in a way that is compatible with the internet. And the second thing that was really clear is that this back in 2017, 18, there wasn't a good solution in the market to do or to support transactional security for crypto assets.
Got it. Super interesting. Okay. So with that kind of prep, I would love to maybe turn and talk a little bit about Fireblocks because, as I was looking through all the sort of range of various offerings from Fireblocks these days, it's pretty crazy everything you guys do with thousands of companies building on Fireblocks in different ways. And so I'm curious, at this stage in the life of Fireblocks, how would you describe maybe a unified picture of what Fireblocks is and what you seek to build?
Yeah, so that's actually true. We basically sort of expanded quite quickly from what was Fireblocks back in the days, which was an institutional wallet and the Fireblocks network. We expanded to providing a pretty wide platform and infrastructure for companies that are building and operating in the crypto space. But still, fundamentally, what we're doing is that we're enabling to work with cryptocurrencies and digital assets in a simple and secure way. What that means in practice is that we provide them a variety of institutional grade wallets or key management solutions through which they can manage either their own reserves or the assets that they safekeeping for their clients, or providing non-custodial solution for their clients. So basically, very robust wallet infrastructure that is catered for either businesses or B2B2C. The second component is really providing the ability of those clients to move assets securely between them and other counterparties. That is being done through the Fireblocks network. And we're basically calling this part treasury management solutions. And on top of that, there are basically two other interesting capabilities: tokenization, that we acquired the company basically in September last year, called Blockfall, that was essentially the setup for our tokenization models. And that allows people to issue and manage tokens, whether those are security tokens, stable coins, CBDCs, carbon credits, NFTs, and so on the blockchain. And also the payment engine, which we're quite excited about, that it's also based on acquisition we've done back in January 2022, that it allows payment companies, more specifically, to provide a range of services around the globe, and focusing on substituting the old rails or the old way of moving money through stablecoins.
Got it. Super, super interesting. Okay. So given we're pretty clearly in this new moment in crypto in the market cycle, right? It feels a little bit maybe easier to talk about the past couple of years. And, before I definitely want to talk more about sort of what Fireblocks is thinking these days and also for the future. But I'm curious before that, could you talk a little bit about what this past bear market felt like inside Fireblocks and how your team had to adapt to continue pushing forward your mission?
Yeah. So I think the interesting thing about us is that I think, managed this bear market or the winter in a reasonably good way. It's not that it didn't affect us at all, but I think it somehow affected us less than others. And the reason for that is that if we go back to the inception of the company, our view was that we are not building Fireblocks to solely support, let's call it trading or speculative trading around cryptos, right? So we are not solely building it to support people trading Bitcoin or altcoins up and down, but actually we are interested in the long-term mainstream use cases around the crypto rails, right? So how do you actually use Ethereum or Solana or any other, layer 1, layer 2, right, as an infrastructure for whether financial applications or Web3 applications? So kind of fast forward even before the Terra Luna crash and Three Arrows and Celsius at the beginning of sort of late 2021, early 2022, when things were still going very, very well. In the previous cycle, I put a pretty strong statement, which was actually sort of sitting on the shoulders of the acquisition we've done of First, that we need to now focus aggressively in expanding our client base and expanding the use cases that we're going to service outside of crypto trading. So we started kind of evangelizing and working with with payment companies, Pay and Checkout and PayU, and some of those guys were at the very beginning over there. We started working with banks like ABN AMRO and Bank of New York Mellon and others on tokenized security projects. We started to work with Web3 companies on the back of the Web3 engine that we launched back in May 2022, right? So when kind of FTX hit, we were already in the midst of diversifying our client base across all those different use cases. And I think what we were able to do successfully through 2023 is to kind of build on top of that momentum and diversify our business. So it's true that that a lot of our clients, and just to be candid and clear, a lot of our clients that we had back in 2021 and early 2022 got significantly affected, right? So, Celsius and BlockFi and the Genesis and some of those guys were some of our, and even, by the way, Signature and SVB were Fireblocks clients. So, of course, some of those clients went bankrupt and disappeared, but or went through Chapter 11. But actually, we were able to successfully distribute and augment our client base, our portfolio, and our products through 2023, and both build new products for those new set of clients that came in through to those new segments, make them successful, partner with them. And I think, as many people said, kind of keeping your heads down and continue building. I think we were both focused on that. And I think we were also focusing on commercializing that build in segments that were less affected. So overall, we came from 2023 into 2024 in a pretty good position.
Yeah, fascinating journey. Super interesting. Okay. Hey, everybody, quick thing here. We're excited to announce WAGMI Advisory, your home for all things fundraising, hiring, and partnerships. This is all about supercharging your project with the WAGMI network, consisting of over 20,000 executives, investors, and builders in crypto, all ready to come alongside your project to help it succeed. Get in touch at team@wagmiventures.io to learn more and figure out if WAGMI Advisory is the right fit for your project. Now, let's get back to the show. So I'm curious, I'm really curious about trajectories here, where, and kind of as it relates to you as sort of a leader of Fireblocks, right? Where, I'm curious what gets you most excited as you think about even the next year or 2 years in crypto. What does that look like for the future of Fireblocks as it relates to what gets you personally excited?
Yeah. So, I think growth just generally keeps me excited, but I think that what really keeps me excited is actually sort of building some of those either new products or actually partnering with people that are working on new use cases. And like for the reference, one of the things that I was quite excited about back in beginning of 2023, we had a very small client out of Argentina, out of the 1,500 clients that we are servicing. We had a very small client from Argentina called Travelex. And what those guys basically did, they built a platform for airline companies to create NFT tickets, basically airline tickets on NFTs. And, at those very early stages of their business, they were able to convince the low-cost airline in Argentina to sort of move into their platform, right? So, and there was a very compelling business model because the way that they actually built that product, it almost kind of turned the business model of the airline tickets economy on its head. Not going to go into the full details of what they were doing, but it was quite innovative. I was excited they were using all of our new capabilities in terms of Web3, but I was mostly excited about the fact that, hey, someone is actually taking the product, right, and building something that has much broader implications by using those rails. And by the way, sort of fast forward to today, just chatting with the founder of that company a few days ago, and it's really going well for them. They now have signed up multiple airlines across Latin America and the Americas as well. And it's really looking that, there is a growth, right, in those segments. So, moving forward, what I am excited about is that all those seeds of those new use cases that we are looking into, again, cross-border payments and applications of ticketing, social media, how do we revolutionize the way that financial products are being distributed? So the tokenized money markets funds and other things that are currently coming to the market, the adoption and the distribution and the propagation of all of those use cases into the mass markets. I think this is actually what keeps me or makes me very excited, our ability to really build the infrastructure to support it and to partner with the people that are bringing it to market. And yeah, and I think I sort of seeing this happening, right? So I think it's quite exciting.
Yeah, I love it. Kind of on that point, speaking to sort of mass adoption and routes there, I'm curious, I understand you have some interesting perspectives on stablecoins. And so I wanted to ask you a couple questions about stablecoins, actually. And I think my first curiosity here is really just a broad question of, what should we expect from stablecoins in 2024 that might be distinct from what was possible before, what was happening before?
Yeah, so I think the simple answer is that we should expect more volume. We should expect more quality. We should expect more FX pairs, right? So we should expect more quality stable coins that are not only US dollar denominated, and we should expect better regulation, right? So that's kind of very high level. But more specifically, what we are seeing is that the adoption of stable coins across the simple use case of moving money on an international rail, right? So basically cross border between two countries is getting a lot of adoption. And we're seeing more and more small and big companies moving into using this technology. So, first and foremost, I think that this is probably not a very controversial prediction, but I think it is a prediction that has a lot of data that, from a leading indicators, actually supports it.
Got it. Super interesting. Okay. Are there any applications of stablecoins that we haven't fully tapped into yet from your perspective?
Yes, for sure. So, okay, think that just to be, or at least when we unpack our statistics, right? 3 years ago, we actually looked at the data, and three years ago in January 2021, about 35% of the volume that was moving through the Fireblocks wallets, or that our customers were moving through their wallets, was stablecoin, which basically tells you that most of it was actually used as a settlement pair for buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or DeFi. Nowadays, it's actually somewhere between 55 to 65, depends on on where the market is. And when we sort of like unpack what's going on over there, it's a lot of small and somehow slightly bigger companies that are actually using stable coins as for its payments, right? So when you look at what is currently being adopted, there is a lot that is being done in cross-border B2B and actually in remittance. What is yet to be adopted, even in that specific kind of category, is all the different applications in, let's call it like product creator economy, right? So starting from contractors that reside in countries where it's difficult to send dollars into, influencers, right? So people that generate content across all the different social media platforms, or doing all kind of freelancing work, or subleasing their houses on Airbnb. It is pretty clear that the ability to send them the payment from the platform, right, is going to become a pretty good use case. And I think we are seeing this kind of picking up, or at least there is a lot of discussion around exactly how it is being done. There are other applications around how do you better manage treasury in terms of FX hedging, right? That because right now those transactions are quite complex, and especially they are complex over the weekend or cutoff times. And because crypto rails are 24/7, I think we're going to see application there. And then last but not least, which is just still somewhat confined into that category, is the interaction of stable coins with that, let's call like, broadly tokenized money market funds or tokenized treasuries, right? So the ability to actually earn yield on stablecoin in a conservative way. So if you don't mind, let me unpack that for a second, because I think it's an interesting topic. As we all know right now, the way that stablecoins are constructed, whether this is a USDC or there is a reserve that is managed either by Circle Coinbase or a reserve that is managed by Tether. And the dollars that are essentially backing the stablecoin, the vast majority of them are actually invested in pretty liquid assets, usually some form of either treasuries or bond, and they're generating at the current state of the economy about 5% per year, right? Which means that right now most of the yield is being captured either by Circle or Tether, right? And they're actually making a lot of money out of it, right? But you or me, if we hold stablecoin, we also want to participate in that opportunity. And traditionally, maybe like 2 years ago, the best way for you to generate yield on stablecoin is to go to something like Compound or Aave, right, and lend to the protocol, and in return you would get it will be over collateralized on the other side, which is, quite safe, or at least, was shown to be, at least in the blue chip protocols, quite safe. And they will give you somewhere between 2 to 3% yield, which was exceptional when interest was at 25 basis point. But right now it's actually not that attractive, and also it is perceived as a bit more risky than to, let's say, lend to the U.S. government, right? So the ability now, what we're actually starting to see is that there are a lot of products on the market from some of the tier one asset managers like Franklin Templeton or Wisdom Tree, where they're coming with tokenized money market funds, and some of it actually coming from quite smaller companies like Hashnote and Securitize and Superstate and so on, and Ondo, that they're creating those products, and you're able to enter and exit those products in real time and sort of to capture yield.
Super interesting perspective there. Okay, I'd love to take a step back here with the time we've got and maybe just ask a couple more general questions about the crypto space kind of writ large. And I think my first curiosity here is just, this is obviously a tremendously exciting and interesting moment in crypto, but I'm curious from your vantage point, like how would you narrate this moment we're at? How should people think about the particular season we're in right now?
Yeah, so I think that the overall perspective is clearly that the approval of the ETF gave some regulatory clarity and also access to a broader set of investors, right? To especially like institutional investors that were cut off from the crypto market so far because of some of the mandates. But it also sounds like that it also allows investors that had Bitcoin right now to go in and do more things with their Bitcoin through the ETF and effectively integrating Bitcoin better into the overall US capital market. So that's kind of one thing, right? So for example, you can actually take Bitcoin that is currently wrapped through an ETF and you can now borrow against it through the traditional capital market infrastructure. Some would argue that it's good, some would argue that it's bad, but it definitely at the moment expands the TAM. On the back of, I think what we've seen also the previous cycle, and I think this is also what we're seeing in this cycle, is that actually creates some tailwinds for all the other participants to come in and figure out how do they actually leveraging the underlying rails, the underlying technology for all the use cases that I've mentioned earlier. And we're also seeing quite a lot of applications around Web3. So a lot of experimentation by super creative developers that they are building consumer applications that at the backbone of that application that they are leveraging some aspects or infrastructure from Web3.
Got it. Super interesting. Okay. So, a recurring question on this podcast is actually a very broad one. It's almost asking you to kind of wax philosophical here for a moment, where if I ask you the future of crypto is blank, how would you fill in that blank?
I think the future of crypto is interesting.
Definitely. Okay. Do you want to elaborate at all, or
is that one question, or the future, or is that like one word, or is that
it could be? Yeah, people take it all directions, right?
Yeah. So look, I think it's the reason why it's interesting is because I think that it can take multiple different paths. But again, as I said earlier, the thing that we are most excited about is the overall applications of it, which some of them I think it's quite clear around financial instrument and financial use cases. But the reason why I think it's actually interesting is that a lot of the experimentation we're seeing in Web3 around how do you engage or leveraging Web3 and crypto, it is going to create new forms of internet components and internet interactions that we haven't seen so far. And they actually have a pretty broad potential on, I think, like, from a social standpoint. And that's, I think, like, the most fascinating aspect of it, both like just like kind of the interaction between the internet and humans, and also from a social economic standpoint.
Love it. Okay. So a couple last questions here for you, Michael. If I were to ask you to maybe go back to the beginning of your crypto journey and think about what advice you might want to impart to that version of yourself from your kind of current wiser self, right? what advice do you feel like is most generalizably useful for others that you would kind of want to impart to yourself about what it would look like to be a crypto founder?
Yeah, I think I had this conversation this morning with the CEO of a company that is kind of earlier stage, and one of the things that was a good thing that we've done is to kind of mentally prepare yourself that when there is a lot of dust in the air, the best thing you can do is just to continue to drive straight. And I think this is what we've done multiple times, that through the two crypto winters that we had to go through. So the strategy that you laid out, at least for us, what worked, and I think that this advice should be taken with a big grain of salt, that during those periods that it's unclear what's going on, the market is behaving. It's like black swan events. The market is behaving sometimes in a non-rational way. The best approach is to actually take the strategy that you had, 5 minutes before this whole mess started, and just continue and execute with that strategy and kind of hold the belief of what you believed earlier. That worked for us.
Love it. Okay. Michael, a couple last questions here for you. What is your team working on right now? And what's the best way for people to follow along on the Fireblocks journey themselves?
Yeah. So a lot of the technology that we've developed in the last 12 months is actually helping create a market structure that has less counterparty risk as opposed to what happened in 2022. So the two things that we've released recently were the non-custodial wallet SDK that basically helps fintechs and retail-focused businesses to kind of offload the key management, or basically the wallet control, to their end users. So providing them more control over their assets and kind of creating some segregation of duties between them and the user to mitigate things like what happened with FTX. And we also recently launched a very similar product for institutional traders that is called an off-exchange custody, which is using MPC technology to lock or to protect the principal of the traders from a risk that the exchange can create. So to remove the pre-funding element of it. So those things are quite important for us, just from a general market structure standpoint. And it's something that we both continuously working with our partners to improve, but more specifically bringing more exchanges, more clients, more distribution, and just making those products better. And as we look into kind of 2024, the two areas where we are putting a lot of our focus is around the on-chain identity and programmable compliance. So how to create, again, an ecosystem that is more secure and sound for investors, coupled with tokenization. So that's kind of like the areas that we are excited about in 2024.
Perfect. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, fascinating to get to hear kind of where we're at and where we're going, and also all the cool work happening at Fireblocks. And so grateful for your time and hope the rest of your week is a good one.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, go ahead and maybe give us a good 5-star rating and subscribe wherever you're getting your podcasts so you can get all the latest conversations with the most interesting crypto founders, investors, and builders from across the world. Thanks so much. Have a good one.